We usually start with talking about how we came up with the idea for a book called I Hate People.
Can anybody want to guess? Yes.
You hated people?
Yes. Yes. Very good.
But hold on a second. So
You're pulling John off his notes.
dang. So I had written a few books before, and I'd written a couple of books about business and innovation. And one of them had actually been called The 10 Faces of Innovation. And these were 10 people, sort of 10 archetypes you could be to get stuff done. Well, I gave corporate talks and was traveling and talking about this book. And every once in a while, I'd get tired of being so positive and assuming that everyone was going to be positive. Well, I was working with Mark, and we were doing branding work and other writing together, and we actually would sit at the same desk together. And Mark...
I used to sit on John's lap, actually, at the desk.
Only in the afternoon. So after a while, I started to listen, and Mark every day would say,
John, I hate people. No, just something I started to pick up saying because people were starting to drive me nuts. I was consulting as a branding consultant, creating brand names for different products and whatnot, and dealing with these corporate morons that just didn't seem to have a clue. And I would just come back to the office or hang up the phone and just go, man, I hate people. What is the deal? And of course, it isn't people that we hate. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this behavior, or these behaviors that we talk about in the book, and you can't really do anything about someone else's behavior, right? I mean, the only person you can really change is yourself. And that's really what the book is about, is how can you change your behavior to balance all of the stuff that goes on with the figures we have in the book.
So it was kind of interesting. I had written 7 books before, so we wrote up a proposal. We sent it off to New York, and Mark, we had an interesting response, right, from one publisher.
Well, yeah, the overall response from the first time the proposal went out was, oh, we can't publish a book that says this. We can't say I hate people. No one's going to buy this book. But could you change the title? And so we said, we had a dark moment, I'll admit it.
It's a moment of weakness.
And we resent our proposal out to a couple of other publishers, and it was titled The Subtle Art of Not Hating People. And our agent said, you know what, guys, this isn't working. You got to bring back the hate. So we did. We said, okay, let's do it. So we actually pumped the hate up the next time around, and we made it even more vitriolic and sent it back out again. And that did it. The next round of it went out, and within a week, Little Brown was knocking on our door saying, we want to publish this book. We did do classic research like John talked about. We did in-person interviews and telephone interviews, but we said, you know what? People are not going to really open up to us about a lot of this stuff. It's very difficult to find soloists because nobody wants to talk about them inside the company. One of the soloists that we talk about is the guy who invented the basic iPod, basically. And he was a guy, he did not work at Apple at the time. He came up with it himself. And he had a business partner, and they've had a falling out. He said, well, I got this great technology. And he went to Apple, and Steve Jobs says, well, I love this. And that guy, whose name I can't even remember.
Tony Fadell.
Tony Fadell he's working at Apple now, but he's disappeared into the mists of obscurity. And we even tried to interview him and said, oh, he does not grant interviews. And it's like Apple just said, no, he now belongs to us. And the iPod is ours. Well, it's actually Steve Jobs and ours. There is no Tony Fadell. That is not the inventor you're looking for. And so it was very difficult. So we said, how are we going to get to these people? So we did what any good researcher did. We started drinking. And we would go to bars in financial districts, like in San Francisco, at 5 o'clock when people got off work. And I had a T-shirt made that said, I hate people. And it became this conversation piece. And once people had a couple of drinks in them, they were more than happy to tell us about all the idiots at work. And so that's where we did a lot of research. Also, the technology was very helpful. We went on Yahoo Answers and LinkedIn and Google Groups and started to just sort of fish. And we didn't say we were writing a book. We just said, yeah.
Did you write off your bar tab?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
In fact, I suggest if any of you want to really keep doing some heavy core drinking, write a book. It's fantastic. But anyway, we did all this kind of new research that authors aren't used to doing and reached out there, and we got some amazing responses from people. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of these 10 least wanted, and then actually at the end of our talk, we'll ask you guys for people you have trouble with in the workspace in the office, and we'll help you identify who they are and the sort of things you can do to kind of get around them. But specifically, let's talk about I think one of the biggest stop signs to getting work done is literally the stop sign. Do you want to talk about them?
Mom, Dad, your boss, perhaps. The stop sign always tells you why you can't do this, why it'll be too expensive, why it's never been done here before. Oh, we tried that a few years ago, it didn't work. The stop sign often is prominent in companies because you do need a couple stop signs to keep your company from going off the cliff, but the stop sign in a creative portion of a new brainstorm, of a new project meeting, brings things to a halt. And so you really have to have strategies to understand who the stop signs are and how to work around them.
Who are we talking about next?
We're going to talk about the Minuteman, I believe.
Okay, find him here. Okay, everybody knows the Minuteman, although you might think the Minuteman's the clock watcher, the guy who can hardly wait to leave work. The Minuteman is that guy who just needs a minute of your time. And hey, can you show me how to change the toner real quick? And hey, I've forgotten the password to get into this account. And before you know it, you've given away all the minutes of your time to this guy who just keeps asking you questions. And one great solution we got was from the head of a large resort who said, I've got a guy on my staff who's exactly like this. And I finally came up with the way to handle him. I told him to open an email to me at the beginning of the day. And every time he has a question, put it in that email. Then before he goes home at night, send it to me. And when he comes in the next morning, I'll have all his answers for him, and he can start a new email. So she's gotten, and he discovered very quickly that he stopped asking questions because it was too much trouble to do an email form. But it worked for a while anyway because she was able to literally say, okay, I can handle all these questions now, and it's not taking up my whole day to handle all this craziness. So there's ways around all these people, including even something that seems as innocuous as the Minuteman, and pretty soon you've got no time left for yourself.
And then I believe we have sheeple, people who are sheep. We've discovered this is about 90% of corporate America. These are the people, of course, who love meetings. They are the people who only do approved work tasks. If you're ever, calling into a company and someone won't do something because it's not in the rules, these are people who just follow that path. And one of the great things about identifying who these people are is the more you recognize them in other people in your company, the less likely you will become sheeple, which is deadly for your career.
What's interesting about the 10 least wanted, and we discovered this both reading it ourselves and finding ourselves in some of these things, but also some of the people we interviewed who were telling us about these types. When the book came out, we went back to them and they said, you know what, once I started reading the book, I realized I have a lot of these elements in myself. Sometimes I am the stop sign, or sometimes I am the switchblade, or some of these other types we have. And it becomes a question of recognizing that behavior in yourself. Like I said at the beginning, there's really only one person whose behavior you can change, and that's you. So instead of getting on somebody because they're a stop sign, when you find yourself being the stop sign, say, hey, hold on a second, is what I'm saying really valid right now? Or can I just kind of hold my tongue for a second and let this creative session blossom and not say, hey, that's a dumb idea, or that's too expensive, or whatever the reason for throwing up the stop sign might be.
And sometimes you have to be these people. We have a character we call the bulldozer, and the bulldozer can often be a bullying boss and someone who sort of dominates a meeting, but there may be times when you have to be a bit of a bulldozer yourself to get a project through. We had an amusing moment there in Times Square where we were driving the hate-mobile, and I believe Mark was running at that point because
someone had to film it. So.
Someone had to film, and I was in the car with a couple of publicists from Little Brown, and the traffic cop stopped directing traffic, ran over, and wanted a handful of our "Do Not Disturb" signs, and it was pretty funny.